We're back on Brew over Blue. It is Wednesday. Hope everybody's doing okay. I apologise for there was no video yesterday for the first time in a while. Hannah Farrell was meant to be coming on, but unfortunately she's not very well. So get well soon, Hannah. She's going to come on next week. I'm sure it'll be worth the wait. She's always great company. But I'd like to say join me today on Wednesday is Paul Mc Parlan. Paul, thanks very much for coming on. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, well, fine, Matt. How about yourself?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. We were just saying there before we hit record, it's a case of sort of getting used to it all now, sort of getting into daily routines. We've got these videos in the morning, we make tea at lunchtime, so it's ready for the night time. Just try and extend the jobs we've got throughout the day, really. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's found their own routine at the moment to try and get them through the day. I said, my son's home from university at the moment, so we don't see him till about 2, 3 in the afternoon. So that gives me and my wife a bit of space of our own in the morning. And then, in terms of getting through the day, I mean, I'm reading lots of football books at the moment, like I'm sure most people are. I've just read Rob Sawyer's book about Roy Vernon, which I really enjoyed. About Scott Gavin Buckland's book about Money Can't Buy Me Love. So, enjoying the reading at the moment. Catching up with various things on the TV. Actually enjoyed watching the English game on Netflix. I don't know if you caught up with that at all.
Still not seen that yet. That's on my list of things to get onto, yeah. But for people who've not heard of it or not seen it, what's it about?
Well, basically, it's about the rise of professional football, particularly in the northern mill towns, particularly like Blackburn and Darwin, how they were the first sort of clubs to start paying professionals. But it was all under the counter payments. I mean, probably not much has changed in modern football in that respect. And so it's about the clash between the amateur code, the ethics of all the old public schools like the Wanderers, the old Etonians, the Carthusians, clubs like this who dominated football, who wanted to keep football as a preserve of the upper stroke middle classes, whereas the sport's huge popularity in the northern mill towns meant there was a change coming, and the modern version of football, you could argue, is due to the fact that the working class background of the game, the working class support, and the introduction of professionalism changed the game forever.
It sounds really interesting. I mean, you sort of sat there watching that and thinking it's, I know you said there it was sort of like the catalyst and like the blueprint for the modern game, but you must watch it. I've not seen it myself yet and think it's so far removed from what we see now.
Oh, undoubtedly, Matt, and you have to accept the fact that it's faction, so it's not 100% accurate. So there's a team called Blackburn who ended up winning the cup, but the actual team that won it was Blackburn Olympic, and the year afterwards was Blackburn Rovers. So I think Julian Fellows, who produced it, has gone for a halfway house combining the two teams. But a lot of it is based on history, and the social background to it's really good as well. And I think what most Blues would enjoy about it most is the fact that Everton get mentioned and Liverpool don't.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's always nice when that happens. But I was going to speak to you about your love of football history because I was sort of perusing your Twitter timeline before and the amount of articles that have been shared by yourself that you've written and articles that you've shared from these football times is they're always worth a read. There's always something interesting there and something good for everybody to get involved in. And during this lockdown and not having the current football going on, have you found yourself delving or going more down in that football history rabbit hole, or have you found it easy to switch off from it all?
It's a long rabbit hole, I have to say, Matt, but once you start going into it, there doesn't appear to be any way out, and you just find yourself getting distracted by the most curious bits of football trivia and exploring them and reading about them a lot more. I've always been massively interested in football history, even since I was a kid. People at school used to avoid me to forget the conversations with me, but I've always kept that interest going strong, and I always find the history of football fascinating. And I think people underestimate the part that football's played in social history as well. I mean, from time to time, I'll pounce on somebody in an unsuspecting mood and dig out some Everton programs in the 1960s, and you look at the adverts and say things like, "Look at this, the advertising for workers at Ford. You can just go down to Ford's and get a job." It was different for your generation. We just can't do that now. So, in terms of social insight, social history, the things you find out and the things you recover are just absolutely fascinating.
Is there a particular, aside from Everton, obviously, is there a particular part of the football history that you're interested in? Because I've seen articles that you've done in the past. Your most recent one on these football times is in regards to Dennis Law's season at Torino. You've done stuff about Barcelona in the past as well. You've done something on Borussia Dortmund. I mean, is there any particular aspect? I mean, those articles would indicate that you're really interested in European football history, but is there a country or a team in particular that you've got a particular soft spot for, aside from the Toffees?
Well, I think there'd be two answers to that, Matt. I've always had a soft spot for Spanish football. I did a place in Madrid in 1975, and really got into watching football there. Went to Real Madrid. I saw Atletico play the Intercontinental Cup final against Independiente from Argentina. So the kind of experiences that stuck with me. So I've always been fascinated by Spanish football because of that. In terms of English football, always had a soft spot for Chelsea side in the 1960s. I think it just oozed glamour, and they had the certain sort of image about them that Everton maybe in the north didn't quite have. As a teenage boy, you'd be reading these stories about Raquel Welch turning up to watch Peter Osgood play. You think, wow, that's a Leicester I could never even hope to come close to.
Yeah, I mean, I want to come back to the Spanish football in a bit, but interesting what you said about that Chelsea side there and how they were perceived. And I remember speaking to Gav about this, Gav Buckland, on one of the shows we did last year in regards to his book and how Everton were perceived. And I think one of the interesting points that he makes in that is that Everton, despite being a really good side in the 1960s, having some fantastic players, some players who were part of that England 1966 World Cup winning side, they were never really taken to by the media in the same way as a London club would, or the same way as that Chelsea side was. And it sort of feels as though that perception of Everton and what they're about and the style of football they play has sort of stuck through from then up until the modern day now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point from Gavin, Matt. From my perspective, I think that the Everton's image suffered in sort of 62, 63 because when they won the league title, so kind of backed by John Moore's financial backing, there was a real negative perception about how Everton had won the league in the press. We were given the derogatory term, the Mersey millionaires. Accusations were made that we bought the title almost as if it was not in the spirit of the game. In some ways, you could argue Everton were at the forefront of the way football was changing post the maximum wage being lifted, where transfer fees would become an increasingly important part of the game. And maybe if Everton won that title a few years later, they wouldn't suffer from that negative publicity. But I think the Mersey millionaires tag really hung over them. I think we also kind of suffered slightly from the Tony Kaye bribery thing as well. That kind of attached itself to the club. Everton's fans in the 60s, I'm sure Gavin would support this, really had a bad reputation because the 1960s, in my view, was the first time when away support became a thing, because prior to, say, 1960, most working class people worked Saturday morning, so you couldn't really get to away games, particularly down in the South and Midlands. But with more people having cars, away support became a much bigger thing. With not working on the Saturday, away support became a thing. Cheaper rail travel for football matches sort of kicked in as well. So Everton's fans got a bit of a reputation of being a bit unruly and a bit uncouth. And basically, I think they're being criticised for not being Southern. I think the London press found their fanaticism quite hard to handle. And there's a book by John Monaghan, I think, called The Soccer Syndrome. It's one of the acknowledged books in the 1960s, and it's a really good book. But his chapter about Everton supporters, it's almost libelous, some of the things he says about how vicious and violent they are and how seriously they take the game. So I think we never quite... I think because of that, in the 1960s, we didn't quite get the credit we deserved. And when you look back to that team that won the title in 69-70, that midfield of Kendall, Ball, Harvey is arguably one of the best all English midfield lineups that any team could lay claim to. And I think part of the problem with the 69-70 winning the league is that it came the season that the World Cup was taking place in Mexico, and maybe we lost something because of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, where do you think that? Well, I don't know if you know where that reputation came from regards to the supporters in the 60s. Was it just a case of these lads go and watch the team in all parts of the country? Was it that?
Well, I think Liverpool in the early 60s, and there's lots of sort of kind of books and documents about this, was a city that was really on the up. I don't know if you ever watch Talking Pictures TV. They do reruns of Sunday nights at the London Palladium from the 60s. And there's one there's one show there being hosted by Jimmy Tarbuck, and there's a comedian from the 1960s called Arthur Haynes, and he has his little sketch where all he does is say, my daughter can't get on TV because she's not from Liverpool. My girlfriend can't get on TV because she's not from Liverpool.
Okay,
My
right.
dad can't get on TV because she's not from Liverpool. You've got to be from Liverpool to get on TV. So in the early 60s, Liverpool's reputation, worldwide, had really taken off. And I think it combined with, national service had come to an end. Lots of people in Liverpool, the docks were earning quite good money. Ford's was really taking on employees at their company in Hale. So you had the combination of more leisure time, more money, and also, people who the age of deference was starting to change as well. When you're elders and betters, people start saying, "Hang on, no, that's I'm not going to put up with that. That's not right." So I think they all kind of combined to create this image of, unruly football supporters who. Football supposed to generally be portrayed in the press before then. All these people wearing rosettes, waving their rattles, their cloth caps, going to games in suits. And you could argue that both Everton and Liverpool fans may play a role in changing that image.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That about the anecdote about people not being able to get on television because they're not from Liverpool. Whereas now in the national media and BBC and ITV and on all those major news channels, you very rarely hear a Scouse accent at all. You very, there's no Scouse newsreaders, there's no Scouse people on national radio or anything like that. And even those who are from the area, you sort of get the sense that twang and that that maybe rawness and that edge to the voice is sort of coached out of them all. So it's so strange that used to be the case.
Well, it is because you read stories of, say, bands like the Hollies from Manchester in the 1960s, and when they were trying to break through, they would have to put on Scouse accents to try and get gigs at clubs in London. And it's. I always remember one story. Me and a couple of friends went to San Diego in 1979, and you can't forget how the Liverpool accent is viewed outside the country sometimes. And we're in a restaurant in San Diego, the four of us, and we were just all talking away. We're all in our 20s. As the evening continued, we noticed that the restaurant was getting quieter and quieter, and people were starting to stand by our table, just standing by us and listening to us. And after about half an hour, we had about 20 people standing around us, and we just said, "What's going on here?" And the owner says, "Guys, listen to you guys. It's like listening to the Beatles. It's like having John, Paul, George, and Ringo here in the restaurant. How do you guys do it? How do you talk like that?"
Oh wow, absolutely crazy the way that was. But just sort of going back to Spain there as well, Madrid. So you said you lived in Madrid for 1975, was it? Was that just for a year?
It was the best part of best part of 9 months, really, Matt. Yeah. I was 20 at the time. It was part of the course. I was studying Spanish at the time, so I was kind of there during the last year of General Franco's reign, it was just a really, really really opened my eyes because I'd never really been away from England before. There was a group of 9 of us went out and did the placement there, and we went to watch Real, we went to watch Atletico, we watched lots of the games on Spanish TV. So it was a really, really good experience, and kind of developed a huge interest in Spanish football because of that.
Yeah, and I think it was the last show we did actually before the lockdown. You were up at the tower and we were downstairs, and I came down to get you, and you were chatting to some Atletico Madrid fans about how to get up to Anfield or sort of taken aback by it. I just Spanish. But obviously Madrid is a city. There are some parallels to sort of draw between Liverpool and Everton, aren't you? You've got the one juggernaut in the city that's had all this European success, is worldwide recognised, and I suppose you've got this, the side, not the lesser side, but the side that's not well known. They've got their own history and their own right, but are sort of dwarfed by those big rivals. I mean, what was your take on the footballing culture in Madrid in that sense? And back when you were over there in 1975, was it still the case in regards to Atletico sort of being Real's little brother?
Yeah, I think it was, but at that time, Atletico had won the league the season before, 73-74. So they'd won 72-73, and they'd gone to the European Cup 73-74, where they lost to Bayern Munich in a replay, I think it was. And so they were on the up, Atletico, but you could kind of sense the difference between how the clubs were viewed within the city, because we lived in the city centre, and we came across mainly Real fans as opposed to Atletico fans. But when we went to Atletico's ground, that parts of Madrid at that time was quite a scary area, and you notice the difference in class and attitude of the Atletico fans compared to the Real fans. I mean, even then, Real were definitely more of the middle class team. They were definitely perceived as being General Franco's team, having General Franco's favour in backing them. And so, from that point of view, Atletico always seemed, the lesser of the two teams, which kind of made the times when they won the league and they won the Spanish Cup all that more enjoyable for them, because it didn't happen that often. But in Spanish football in the 70s was kind of, no team really was a dominant force. You had the Barcelona side with Johan Neeskens and Johan Cruyff, who just signed 2 years previously, who the previous year had gone to Real Madrid and beaten them 5-0, which is almost like the game that most Barcelona fans of my age remember to this day, even though there's very little footage of it available still, that kind of lived on the memory. And that was kind of the game that was kind of changing the balance of power, because Barcelona in the 60s hadn't come close to touching Real in terms of winning the title.
Yeah, I'm gonna show off my potentially terrible Spanish knowledge here, but don't they call that a manita in Spain when you beat someone by 5-0?
That's right. You do, yeah. You hold your hand up like that, and each finger represents a goal. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember. I think I remember watching the game. It was about 3 or 4 years ago now. And Real got beat 4-0 by Barca at the Bernabeu. Yeah. It was when Benitez was the manager, and they just went and tore them to pieces. I remember Piqué got a chance. He was like through on goal, and somebody took the shot off his foot, and he missed it to make it 5-0. And Piqué was like absolutely fuming. You would have thought it was 0-0, because beating someone by 5 is such a big thing over there, isn't it? Because of that.
It is, yeah. And I think it happened as well in the late 80s, early 90s, when Barcelona were winning 5-0 at the Nou Camp, and the TV camera flashed to the assistant coach on the bench, and he just held his hand up like that, and it just calls on the TV camera. So it was an iconic image of Barcelona scoring the 5 goals, and then it flashed to the crowd, and everyone's just standing there with their hands like that all around the stage, and it absolutely brilliant.
Great stuff. And just finally on Madrid, have you got a soft spot for Atletico as an Evertonian in that regard, or your loyalties elsewhere in Spain?
No, definitely a soft spot for Atletico, and because at the time in Madrid in 1975, there was such a general anti-Barcelona feeling both from the Real fans and Atletico fans. I've never quite bought into Barcelona the way lots of people have.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving on then, your kit, you've got a fair kit on today for people who are listening to this. Could you just explain what one it is?
Yeah, I think it's from the 13-14 season. It was one of the Everton. I think Everton started to make that a third choice option in the last sort of 10, 12 years or so. And always quite liked the third choice option, because the Everton second shirts, quite often I just didn't like the colour, didn't like the design, but I always like the third choice shirts for their obviously value as well. I like this one as well. I like the Chang thing. And I've told you my story about Changi, haven't I?
No, I mean, what time to tell it?
Okay, 15-16 season. There was an advert in the programme for a Keep Fit course for males of a certain age. So I kind of signed up for it. So about 28 of us did the course. And parts of the sessions were led by Pat Van Den Houw, which is absolutely brilliant from our perspective, brilliant. Yeah, I can say I played walking football, Pat Van Den Houw. I'll go to my grave with that one. But
I bet you still put slide tackles in, wasn't he, and stuff. And
you didn't come out of a tackle, Pat Van Den Houw. Well, I have to say, and I mean, he looked great. He just looked so fit. He had some brilliant stories to tell as well from his time at Everton. But there's like a pause cabin at the back of the park stand, and it's like a gym which was used by the participants on this course. And one day we're told to get some equipment out from the back. We opened the door and something fell out. It was Changi's head. He'd been decapitated. We'd wondered what had happened to him, but he'd been in the store cupboard for 2-3 seasons now. And the poor guy, I mean, you could almost say it was a curse on Everton. We decapitated our mascots and things, and they'll be the same since.
That must have been quite a shock when that fell out. My word.
Oh, God, it was. I'm not exaggerating. 1 or 2 people were nearly in tears. So that's how much a Changi guy. He was my favourite mascot.
Oh, my word.
we've never really had a mascot since then, have we? Unlike other clubs.
Yeah. Were there all the other mascots from the years gone by in there as well? Just chopped off, you know.
Well, I mean, the only one I can recall before that was Dixie, and that was a pretty bizarre choice of mascot, I have to say.
I remember the bizarre Mr. Testicles one when they had that for one game.
Oh God, yeah. I've unfortunately wiped that one from my mind, Matt. Yeah, but and of course, when you think about it, you know, Everton won the first club to have this tradition of the toffee lady going around throwing sweets into the crowd, etc. You know, and it's surprising that we haven't really gone on from that to develop an official club mascot like many sides have.
Yeah, dear me, poor Changi.
I mean, I'll put up nightmares about this tonight. You know,
me too.
I know some of the guys needed counselling afterwards. It was that traumatic experience.
Sounds absolutely traumatic. But Paul, I really enjoyed that, mate. 20 minutes has absolutely flown by. Your football history knowledge is ridiculous. I envy it a lot. But really, thanks very much for coming on and sharing some of those stories. Stay safe, mate, and hopefully catch up soon.
Cheers. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on. And look after yourself. Take care of yourself. And we'll meet again physically soon, hopefully.
Yeah.